Have you ever stopped long enough to think about how vivid everybody else's life is, and just as real and complete as your life is, other people's lives are just as real, vivid, and complete? We're going to talk about that in today's video. Hey guys, and welcome back to God's Word Made Simple by Simple Servant Ministries. My name is Aaron Hawk, and if this is your first time visiting with us, I just want to say welcome and thank you for being here. God's Word Made Simple is an online discipleship ministry dedicated to taking God's Word and making it simple. We want to help you understand God's Word, apply it to your life, and grow in your relationship with the Lord. And by the way, if you appreciate this content, before you leave, make sure to hit that like button and hit the subscribe and turn that bell notification to all so that you don't miss any future videos. We would love to have you as part of our family. Hey guys, and welcome back. So today's video is really more of a meditation than anything. It's just, and I don't mean meditation in the sense of meditating, but meditation as in we are supposed to take biblical principles and chew on them and meditate on them. That means to think over them over the course of time. And one of the things that I wanted to think about today is God's glory, but we're going to get there through what I already referenced in the beginning, right? When I'm driving, I love driving. I love traveling and driving. And when I'm driving, in particular, going from South Carolina to Kentucky when I was in seminary, I would do that drive, a time or two a month on average. And there was this one river in particular, and it was the French River, but there were several times that I crossed over a river labeled the French River. So anyway, it's this particular one. It has this huge ravine, and it goes down to a river, and there's like a lake on one side, and I don't remember what's on the other because I'm driving and it's highway speed, so I really couldn't pay that much attention. But it always struck me because kind of on the edge of this one side of the ravine, when I'm heading toward Kentucky, there's this white house there. And I remember this one time, I still actually prefer driving at night, but now that I have kids, that's not as fun because they don't sleep in the car. But anyway, I used to love driving at night. So I was driving late night one time, so late at night that it was actually early morning, so the sunrise was starting to come up. And it was one of the most beautiful drives I've ever taken. And that particular spot I hit right as there was still this mist in the air, but the beautiful sunrise was coming up over the side, and it was just picturesque. I mean, it was literally like stop and take a picture kind of thing, except it was a highway and a bridge, and that wouldn't have been safe or smart. But it was as picturesque as you can get. And I remember thinking to myself, and this meditation comes to me from time to time, but I remember thinking to myself, I wonder what those people are doing right now. I wonder what daily life is like for them. I wonder what struggles they are going through in that particular house. Because you have this beautiful scene, but it's this moment where you're almost separated from yourself, and you're thinking, just as my brain is filled with information every moment of every day, and I have thoughts and feelings that are vibrant and vivid and important to me, and important to God, believe it or not. And these people in this house, I don't know how many people lived there. I couldn't see well enough to see how many vehicles and so on. Not that always tells you anything. But, I don't know how many people lived there, but each one of the people that lived there, their lives are just as vivid. They have hopes and dreams. And, I think about the sheer amount of data that my brain processes, my eyes take in, my other senses take in, and my brain processes and stores. And it's just mind-blowing how vivid our lives are. Now, most of the time, we're so stuck in a rut that we don't realize that. Fast forward a few years later, when I was running a business by myself, I remember going on a business trip one time, and I looked up at the sky, and it's like, whoa, there's clouds up there. I forgot about clouds because I was so focused on the business all the time that I hadn't just looked up at the sky for a long time, right? But we need to stop and take those times to just appreciate it. And I was better about that before starting the business, and I am now better about that again. But we need to have those moments where we are separated from ourselves, so to speak, and taking in the global perspective. Every person that you meet, think about a trip to the grocery store, right? Every person that you meet has just as vivid a life as you do. And I want to say there was a movie that talked about this at one point too. If you remember the name of the movie, you can put it down in the comments. But I want to say there was a movie that talked about this. But it's a common meditation. This isn't anything unique to me. But think about a trip to the grocery store. Each person that you pass is living just as vivid a life, has just as many hopes and dreams and aspirations and struggles and pains and trials and joys that you do. And they have people connected to them just like you do. But we're so unaware of the other people going around us because we are so locked into our own little worlds. It's hard enough to connect with the people in our own families, right? I mean, my wife's family, I absolutely love my wife's family. I spent many, many, many years, all the way from high school, if it wasn't 10th grade, or if it wasn't 9th grade, it was 10th grade. Thinking it was 9th grade that I started praying for my future wife and her family. Specifically, I had been praying a long time before that for a future family. But specifically, I didn't know them at the time, but for specifically my wife and her family, the wife that I would one day have and her family. And I remember praying, but I could have met any of my wife. I could have met my wife, but I could have met her or any of her family members prior to that. And I wouldn't have known them. I wouldn't have had any real interaction with them. Now, I'm pretty confident that I had not met them prior to that because they lived in a completely different state than where I grew up. But also, this meditation came back to me after I met my wife's family. And again, I love them. I am so thankful for them. We get along really well, and I attribute that to all of us trying to seek God and also to all of the prayers. They had been praying for me for years. Michelle, my wife, had been praying for me for years. I had been praying for them. My mom had, we were covered in prayer, right? But this meditation came back to me after I met them too, and after I started getting to know them and developing a relationship with them. And if I had shown up, same person, same people, if I had shown up at their door prior to meeting Michelle and getting in a relationship with my wife, prior to getting into a relationship with my wife, if I had just shown up at their door, right, I wouldn't have been welcome. I was a stranger, right? I wouldn't have been able to have fellowship with them. I wouldn't have been able to see through their eyes at all at that point. But once I met my wife's family and I started getting to know them and interacting with them, right, then I began to understand their family, their culture, their city, their state, right? All these different areas of life started opening up because of this relationship. And my life was profoundly changed, not just because of my relationship with my wife, but because of the relationship that I had with them, right? And so this one encounter brings all this additional stuff into my life. And guys, we miss it. When we miss that, we miss it. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm getting back to God's glory, and most people have probably stopped watching this video at this point because this is a mental exercise. And let's be honest, most people on YouTube are looking for brainless stuff, but I'm hoping my audience isn't the same on that. But this is an important thing to think about, because when you get that glimpse into other people's lives, you get the slightest little taste of God's perspective. Because think about that. And the movie Bruce Almighty tried to demonstrate that with the prayers, right? If you've ever seen that movie, when all the prayers were coming in and he was so overloaded because all these different voices, right? But think about it. Each individual person has all these hopes and dreams and desires. Each person is having all these conversations with God. Each person is coming to God begging for his help in one area or another. And we can't even handle our own life. Meanwhile, God, He handles all of it simultaneously. You know, another good example is there was a church that I was in a long time ago where the men would separate from the women during the prayer time before the service. They actually had corporate prayer that was part of the service, but it was before we actually went into the sanctuary. But the men and the women would pray separately. But when it was prayer time, and nobody warned me about this, it was a little weird at first, but when it was prayer time, everybody prayed simultaneously out loud. Not just, okay, here's a moment of quiet to pray. Every single individual that was in the room would pray out loud together. And I remember the first few times it was a little disconcerting. And then it was like, you know, this is actually a pretty awesome picture of how awesome God is. That He hears each individual person amidst all this chaos as if it was just us. And that goes back to my meditation. Each person that you pass on the street, that is a person for whom Christ died to pay for their sins so that they could enter into heaven. Guys, we've got to have a burden for the lost. And the only way we're going to do that is if we can see the brokenness and the need around us. And the only way we're going to do that is if we see the people around us. Instead of just getting pigeonholed into our own little lives and perspective. That's one of the reasons that the world, the flesh, and the devil want us so distracted and so overly busy. Because when we're busy and distracted, we pull in and we only focus on our stuff. Instead of opening our eyes and seeing the people around us and seeing the need and seeing the work that God is trying to do. So guys, that's my meditation today. That's my thought for today. I want you to really spend some time relaxing and opening your eyes to the people around you. Try to put yourself in each of their shoes. Find a stranger. Now don't stalk them. That's not what I'm talking about. But, you know, you go to a coffee shop or somewhere, right? We all people watch to some degree, right? Instead of watching for whatever you would normally watch, pick one person to observe. Again, not in a creepy way. Don't go getting arrested for stalking or anything. But just observe that person and try and put yourself in their shoes. You know, based on the way that they've put their clothing and their hair, you know, what's their level of confidence? What's their status in life, their economic status? And I'm not talking about judging people. I'm saying put yourself in their shoes, right? If you can hear some of the conversation, you know, do they sound hopeful? Do they sound depressed, right? Try to put yourself in their shoes as much as you can without being creepy. And then spend some time praying to God on their behalf with that information. You will change your spiritual walk if you do this with any regularity. So that's my encouragement to you. So guys, this is a little bit of a different video today, but I wanted to just share this meditation from my heart. Again, this is one that I keep coming back to. So if you appreciate this channel and any of the content that we put out, make sure to hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn that bell icon to all so that you don't miss any future videos. Guys, thank you very much, and God bless.